Hello, and welcome to episode 77 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit chat all about the joys of small scale knitting. My name is Andy, and welcome to another week of the podcast. I know my background has changed a little bit. I probably sound a little bit echoey. I'm currently recording in the living room just because this is the side of the apartment that the sun is on right now. I'm recording relatively late in the afternoon. It's about 3 o'clock on Sunday, October 15th. And so I wanted to capture as much sunlight as I could. And in the other room, it's just a little bit dark. So I also have a sort of weird setup, and I'm trying to not talk too loudly because I'm pretty close to my microphone. So hopefully we can make this all work. But anyway, this episode should go up on Tuesday, October 17th. And if you're looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Purlbug, Purlbug. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to anything that I mention, any patterns or anything, all of those, if you're watching this on the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post. You can go there and then again find everything linked right below the video. I am back on Instagram now. I had been off of Instagram since I think early June of this year, and just decided that, I was ready to come back. I missed it. I think I've been away long enough now that, some of the bad habits that I was developing before, I'm hoping I maybe have sort of kicked those. And I really want to use it more so now as sort of a space to show off my knitting and my dyeing and stuff like that. Really sort of keep it more focused, a little bit less sort of just like, oh my gosh, all kinds of stuff about my life. And also just trying to sort of limit my posting on there to, max like one a day. But yeah, I am back there now. So, feel free to friend me on there. So otherwise, let's see. This is going to be a mostly normal episode. We'll talk about finished objects, works in progress, what's coming up next, knit along stuff, question of the week, and then chit chat. So yeah. Let's get right into it with finished objects. So I have one finished object, I have one half object, and I have one almost half object, but we'll start with the thing that's actually a finished object, which is what's sitting right here next to me. So this is actually still drying, but this is a project that you guys haven't seen yet, and if I wait any longer than now, you won't see it. So I figured I can show it off while it's still kind of damp, and that'll be okay. But I got a little notification on my phone, I don't even know when. I guess it would have been on the 10th or so sometime during this past week, saying that my niece's birthday is coming up, which I had totally forgotten about, which is of course why I set the reminder on my phone. And it was saying that it was coming up in 2 weeks, and so I was like, oh my gosh. And she's turning 5, and I don't really know anything about 5-year-olds because I don't spend any time around children, so I texted my little brother to ask what would be a good age-appropriate gift for her, and not even thinking about like knitting something, but he said that a great gift would be maybe something like a scarf or mittens or something, because she's going to be taking she is taking ice skating lessons. And so I was like, okay, well, this is great. And so I thought a little bit about what I know about 5-year-olds, and I decided mittens I didn't really want to do, because even though I'm not at all precious with like my knitting, for one, like I said, I know nothing about kids, so I have no idea even what size to make children's mittens. And two, like I said, I'm not precious about my knitting or anything, but I know kids lose things, and I would be a little bit sad if one mitten out of the pair got lost. Like, it's one thing to lose everything, but it's another thing to lose one of them. And so I decided against mittens. I also decided against a scarf because I feel like scarves, I don't tend to wear scarves very much. I think I've talked about this before, but like, I don't like scarves because I feel like scarves, they're either too loose or they're too tight. They're never perfect, right? It's either falling off or it's choking you. So I am much more a fan of cowls. And so I decided to make her a cowl. And this is actually my first, well, it's not really technically my first brioche project, but I'm going to say it's my first brioche project because my real first one I did way back a long time ago, before I really knew anything about knitting and before brioche had really become like popular, I guess. So it was like a simple one color brioche thing. So this for sure is my first ever 2-color brioche. And this is based off of I forget exactly what it's called. It's like brioche hat and cowl or something. It's a free pattern from Pearl Soho. But basically I just took their pattern and made it a little bit smaller. Oh, let's move it out of the sunlight. So yeah, this is a 2-color brioche cowl. It's very simple. This is I guess the right side of it. So this is the side that has the sort of teal color as the dominant, and then the other side has this sort of rainbow color as dominant. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty simple pattern. So you just cast on your stitches, you knit like 5 rows of stockinette, then you start your 2-color brioche, and you basically work that until you're done. And then you do another 5 rows of stockinette, and then you bind off. And so I cast on 100 stitches, which I think still might have been a little bit too big, but whatever. It also has sort of stretched out a little bit as it's been drying, so I'm thinking about putting it in the dryer to because it's still just a little bit damp. I'm thinking about putting it in the dryer just to sort of try and like shrink it back up a little bit while it dries the rest of the way, and kind of fluff it up a little bit more. But yeah, the 2 colors on here, so the sort of teal color, this minty sort of color, this is the contrasting color that I used on my poly. Let's see if I can get this close enough so you can actually, I guess that'll work. So yeah, so this mint color is the color that I used on my poly as the contrasting color, and then sort of the second color, the sort of rainbow color, is what I used for my color barf cowl. So these are both leftovers, and I still didn't use either of them up, so pretty good. But yeah, I'm hoping she'll like it. I have to get it put in the mail because her birthday's coming up soon. So like I said, if I didn't show it off now, I wasn't going to be able to show it off. But I didn't find 2-color brioche to be particularly hard to do. It was more so just sort of, getting into the rhythm of doing it. But I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit over it at this point. And I think part of it's because I don't mind gift knitting for people. Like, I love giving away my knits and stuff like that. But I don't like gift knitting with a deadline, which is typically why I don't knit people things for Christmas. And so this was a little bit stressful. I mean, of course, it was a self-imposed stress, but it was still just a little bit stressful because there was a deadline associated with it. But now it's done, and I can send it off. So yeah, very exciting. And I guess that's my only finished object. So let's talk really quick about my half object. So my half object is one of Wesley's socks is done. So I showed these off last week. I showed this one off last week. I don't remember where I was on it. I think I had finished the gusset at that point. So I chugged through it. I finished it up yesterday, I think, on this one, or maybe Friday night. Maybe I finished this one up Friday night. But yeah, it's just a basic sort of sock for Wesley. It's a shorter sock, as you can see, because he likes shorter socks. So 15 rows. Oh, sorry. This cowl was knit using a US size 2.5, which is a 3mm needle. Anyway, so this has 15 rows of twisted rib, 10 rows of leg, eye of partridge heel, and then just sort of a standard foot and toe that I do to fit Wesley's foot. So yeah, that's what that looks like. I did this sort of 1x1 garter rib along the top. If you want to see that. And this yarn is some of my hand-dyed yarn on the tweed sock base, and the color is Wesley's wool. It's a sort of brown color that he helped me dye up. And this, of course, it's getting completely blown out by the sunlight, so I will put in a better picture of it here so you can actually get a better idea of what the color looks like. But it's this really nice sort of red-brown color with little tweedy bits in it, so I think he'll really like that. This was knit on a US size 0, which is a 2mm needle, and this is a 70 stitch sock. I like to knit his socks like really tight, at a really tight gauge, because he's particularly hard on his socks, which is fine. He's very knitworthy and definitely really wears them and appreciates them, but especially now that he's not living here, I don't want them to get holes too quickly because I won't be there to fix them. So yeah, I have yet to cast on the second one. I don't remember if I said that yet, but I have yet to cast on the second one. But I told him I would have these done by the time I came to see him next, which is next weekend. So I think I can knit another short sock like this in a week, no problem. But I've just been, once I finished this one up on, it must have been Friday night, I decided that I was going to spend the rest of the weekend selfish knitting, because I first finished this up then I finished this up and I was like, you know what? I'm done knitting for other people. I'm going to selfish knit for the rest of the weekend. So that's what I've been doing. But yeah, so this one is done, and yeah, I just need to get the other one done. So let's then talk about my, true work in progress, I guess, the one that can't even be called a half object. So this is my Undine sock, and this one you can see I've made a lot of progress on. I think when I showed you guys last week, I was maybe about like here or so. I was a little bit into the foot. I have made a lot of progress on this because, like I said, once I finished up these projects for other people, I was selfish knitting. So I was knitting basically only on this. And so yeah, I am through the heel on this first one, and into the leg. And I think I've decided, okay, so this pattern is called Undine. I talked about this last week, but I am pretty sure that I did not pick the right size for this sock, and I'm even more sure now because it is a little bit of a loose fit, and I sort of picked the size that I did and picked the needle size that I did based on the fact that the pattern has a lot of slip stitches in it, and so I was afraid that it was going to be really tight. It turns out that it's not as tight as I thought. Like, I would say probably pick the size that corresponds to the size sock you are used to making, right? So I probably should have picked, instead of a 72 stitch sock, I maybe should have picked a 64 stitch sock, especially because I'm knitting it on US 1.5s, which are a 2.5 millimeter needle, which is bigger than what I usually use. But whatever, right? Like I said, going into it, I kind of knew that these weren't going to be just normal, wear to work kind of socks, because this sort of shell pattern continues along the bottom of the sock, and that has like some definite texture and thickness to it. So I kind of went into it knowing these would be slipper socks, basically, or just wear around the apartment socks. And so so for that, I'm really loving it, and it doesn't matter that it's a little bit loose, like it fits fine, especially because, they'll shrink up a little bit in the wash. But yeah, I'm knitting this on 100% BFL, and the two colors are, again, my hand-dyed yarns. It's this really dark blue purple, and then this sort of very tonal blue, green, yellow sort of yarn that I dyed up in my crackpot dyeing tutorial. And I think they're working really well together. Like I said last week, so I'm knitting this on US 1.5s, but I'm knitting the toe, heel, and then the cuff on US size 1s, just to make sure that those are kind of knit tight enough. I did a fish lips kiss heel. There's instructions for a short row heel in the pattern, but I figured I already know how to do a fish lips kiss heel. I'll just do that. And I think I'm only going to do probably 5 repeats of the pattern. So each repeat of the pattern is 2 of these sort of scales. So like this plus this, that's like 1 repeat of the pattern. So I think I'm only going to do 5 repeats of the pattern, which would be 10 scales in total on the leg, and then do the cuff, because like I said, I don't need, they're just slipper socks, so they don't need to be particularly tall in the leg. So I suspect that I know I'm going to finish up the leg on this tonight. I suspect I might even get the cuff finished and have this entire sock finished tonight, which would be really cool. Overall, I'm really liking the pattern, other than like the sizing thing, which, like I said, I would say just pick the regular size that you make, that you would wear. But otherwise, I've really been liking it. And like I said last week, this is a super popcorny pattern because each scale is 6 rows. So 1 pattern repeat is 12 rows, but like I typically think of it in like scales rather than pattern repeats. But like 6 rows is like super easy and doable, and you're like, well, let me just do 1 more. Like, let me just get through 1 more. So I've really been enjoying this, and I'm really excited to have these to wear. I think it'd be really great if I could finish them up before I go up to New Hampshire, because of course it's a lot cooler up there. So it'd be nice to have some socks to sort of wear around Wesley's place in the evening to keep my feet nice and warm. But yeah, that's my work in progress. That's it. I have been clearing things off the needles. So as of right now, I have only Wesley socks and this sock, and I guess my fizzy pumpkin drink socks. But my works in progress are whittling down, which is a good feeling. So in terms of what's coming up next, I actually got a little overwhelmed, I don't know, maybe like a week or so ago, and made myself a little list. Oh, you guys can't even see this. A little list of like sort of my like knitting to-dos, like the projects that I want to work through, just to sort of help me stay focused. So obviously, I mean, it's not top of the list, but once I get all of my current stuff finished up, I definitely want to get the exploration station knit. I'm actually done dyeing up all the yarn for it. I have it all here to show you guys. So in case you don't remember, or in case you're new here, if you're new, hi. So the exploration station, right, is this big, giant, sort of crescent-shaped shawl by Stephen West. It will be my first Stephen West project, but it's a 4-color knit, and I am going to knit it out of some yarn that I've had in my stash for, oh my gosh, almost a year now, I think. And this was Cascade Heritage Silk, which is an 85% superwash merino, 15% silk yarn. And I had 3 skeins of it in this sort of tan, I think technically the colorway was called camel, but it was this sort of tan color that I just, the thing that I originally bought it for, I'm not going to use it for. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to over dye this. And so I have been busily over dyeing it. And so these are sort of the 3 main colors that I'm going to use. And then this is sort of the contrasting color. So I'm not exactly sure how they're named in the pattern, but basically just these are my 4 colors. Let's see if I can kind of grab these all at once. So this is what my color palette looks like. And this one here, this was over dyed using that sort of pumpkin, that pumpkin drink colorway that I've been doing. This skein here, this one, was over dyed using the Minty Fresh, which is sort of a light turquoise, which obviously took a little bit differently on a tan colored base. This one I had dyed originally using the same recipe as what is currently listed as Juniper on Etsy, and I actually had to dye it a second time because at first, it's not that these two were the same color. Like, you could tell they were different, but they weren't different enough. And even still, I sort of question if they're different enough, but I'm gonna go with it. And then this one was dyed using sort of my regular recipe for brown plus some extra black food coloring just to make it a little bit darker. So I'm really pleased with it. I think it's definitely a very sort of autumnal color palette, but I think it'll work really well. Yeah, so I'm super excited for that. Like I said, I kind of want to clear some other things. I gotta close those shades. Yeah, actually I'm gonna do that right now. I'll be right back. Okay, that should help. Anyway, yeah, like I'm gonna try and clear off some of these socks off the needles before I start this. Plus, I don't really want to try and start it before I go up to New Hampshire, so it'll probably wait until after I visit Wesley. So after this next weekend for sure, will probably be when I start it. And I would like to maybe have it finished by the next time I go up there, which will probably be Thanksgiving. So yeah, this is sort of going to be my project, I think, for the bulk of November, is trying to get this thing done. And I mean, according to everyone who's knit it, they said that it's a really sort of fun, fast knit. So that's what I'm hoping it turns out to be. As of right now, I do know, or well, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be knitting it on needles smaller than what the pattern calls for. The pattern, I think, calls for US 6s, which are a 4mm needle. I mean, for one thing, I don't own a US 6. For another, I have knit shawls. I actually knit this shawl here, which I've been getting a little bit of wear out of because it's cooled down a little bit. Not today, but the past couple days have been cool. But anyway, this is fingering weight yarn knit with a US size 4, and this is about as loose as I would like my gauge to be with fingering weight yarn. I don't really want it to be looser than this. So I think I'm going to knit that exploration station with the US 4, and if it turns out that it's like smaller than I want, I think you can add just another set of wedges to it. I think I've seen people in their pattern notes say that they did that, so you know, I can just make it bigger. But yeah, otherwise I'm going to try and do it mostly how it's written, but I do think I want that sort of tighter gauge. But I think I'm putting the cart ahead of the horse a little bit here. Anyway, these are the 4 colors. I'm super excited about them. Yeah, and I'm just super excited to start it. But yeah, so that's one thing that's coming up. The other thing that's on my list is, well, so I want to make those brioche socks. I think it's the toe-up brioche socks, especially now that I know how to do 2-color brioche in the round. Those should be super easy. And I think what I'm probably going to do is I think I'm actually going to use the yarn that, the leftover yarn from my Undine socks, because I really think these 2 colors go really well together. And especially with sort of how short these socks are going to be, I think I should have plenty left. So, of course, that might change once I get done with the second of the Undine, but I think that's probably what I'm going to do. And I'll just save those maybe for like November or December, just to sort of cleanse my palette of those colors a little bit. But then I'll be probably excited to come back to them. So yeah, that's another thing that's sort of on the list. And then one other thing, and I think I briefly mentioned this, but a friend of mine, one of my really, really good girlfriends who lives in Colorado, has recently requested another pair of hand knit socks. And she requested neutral colors because her wardrobe is very, very sort of neutral and streamlined in terms of color. And so I was going to knit her a pair of socks out of this, which is 2 skeins of that, it's 80/20 Highland wool nylon, and this is my first time ever dyeing yarn with coffee, and so they're just this very nice sort of pale creamy color. And so I thought this would really work well for her request for neutrals. And so my thought is that if the yarn is going to be neutral, I want the pattern on the socks to not be. So I think I'm going to knit my second pair of snozberries, which is a pattern that I knit last year sometime. If you've been around a long time, you'll remember me knitting that. But I actually knit that and then didn't get to keep them because I accidentally knit them a little bit too short. That was when I was still struggling sort of with sizing. And so I actually wound up giving those to my mom. So this will be the second time I knit that pattern and the second time that I don't get to keep the results. So at some point I'll have to actually keep a pair for myself. But it is a really fun pattern. And I think it will, like the yarn that I used for it last time was sort of a highly variegated yarn, not highly variegated in terms of like different colors, but like very variegated in terms of the color that I'll put a picture on the screen so you guys can see what it looks like. But anyway, I think the pattern will also go very well with this, which is pretty solid and neutral. I think it will really show off that pattern really well. So yeah, that's some things that are sort of on my list to make soon. And yeah, it's funny because, last week I said that I was done trying to make sweaters because, the type of sweater that I want to wear and the type of sweater that I want to knit just are not the same thing. And, what do I say? The fastest way to get yourself to do something is to say you're not going to do it. So now my brain is spinning again about, knitting sweaters. But I want to finish all of these other things that are sort of, more exciting things before I take on a sweater again. But who knows? Maybe as we get into December or closer to New Year's, I'll be knitting another sweater. Who knows? But yeah, that's that. I don't really have any dyeing to talk about because the only dyeing I've done this week was just the last 2 skeins for the exploration station. This is all the dyeing that I've done. There is still yarn in my Etsy shop from when I updated it on Wednesdays. So if you are curious, you can feel free to head over there. I have a couple skeins in that pumpkin drink colorway, which is sort of this orangey sort of one. I have a couple skeins of my sort of Christmassy colorway, which is this chocolate peppermint bark. And I have just like a bunch of other, little like single skeins in different colors and stuff. So if you're curious, you can head on over there. But yeah, I don't have a lot of dyeing to talk about because I've just been really busy. And if you watched my vlog that I posted on Thursday, I think, you would see that I did a lot of dyeing over the weekend. And so I just kind of was taking a little bit of a break from it. But yeah, so that's that for the dyeing. So knit along. We're kind of coming into the second half of October, so this is sort of the last quarter of the knit along, which means there's definitely still time. Like there's still like 2 weeks left when this episode goes up. So if you are a speedy knitter, you can definitely still get something in. As a reminder, the color theme is orange. The technique theme is color work. I've been seeing lots of great stuff, both in terms of color work and orange stuff. There was actually just a finished object submitted, I think today, that was made using yarn that I dyed up as a prize for one of our other knit alongs. And like that just totally blows my mind that of course, I know, right? Like I dye yarn and I send it out into the world, but it sort of still blows my mind that people actually knit things with that, and that that is just crazy to me. So that's very exciting. But anyway, I don't remember if I said this. We have about 20 finished objects right now, so that's super exciting. And yeah, and I'm already looking forward to the next knit along but I'll talk about that probably the next time I record an episode. But the next knit along is the technique theme is try something new. So I think that'll be really fun because like there's just such a wide scope of things that you can interpret that as. So I'm really excited for that. But yeah, as a reminder, the reason I had this here is the prize for this knit along is going to be one of these skeins in the chocolate peppermint bark colorway with stellina in it. So I don't know if you guys will be able to, you can see a little bit of that sparkle there. But yeah, so this is dyed up on a base which is, I think it's 75 superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina. I think that's the composition of this base. But this is sort of, I only had 2 skeins of this sort of stellina base. So this is sort of a special incarnation of this chocolate peppermint bark colorway. But yeah, and then the other skein that's sparkly I'm keeping for myself to knit my Christmas socks out of. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, question of the week. This week is my birthday week. Yay, happy birthday to me. So my question of the week is, what is the most fun thing that you've ever done for your birthday? Or, what is the best birthday you've ever had, I guess? I don't tend to really go big for birthdays just because, I don't know. I mean, especially as I get older and sort of with the life that I lead where I don't necessarily live near family or anything, I just don't tend to celebrate my birthday that hard. Like this year, I am going to make brownies and have a brownie and then take the rest in for a meeting that I have the next day at work. So I just don't tend to like put a ton of stock in birthdays, but I know some people really do. Like I know some people, it's like, it's not just their birthday, it is their birthday week or their birthday month. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like I'm just not one of those types of people. I'm a little bit of an introvert and I also am like a middle child. So I do not like attention being on me or anything like that. So I tend to not really be hardcore into birthdays, but to the point where I honestly can't even remember what I did for my birthday last year. I'm pretty sure Wesley and I probably went out to eat or something, but I honestly don't remember. I know the year before that for my birthday, that would have been my first birthday that I had here in Richmond. We went to go see Craig Ferguson, who's a comedian, very funny. We went to go see a comedy show he was doing, which happened to be right around the time of my birthday, and that was a lot of fun. But I guess this year, I would count, going up to New Hampshire as sort of like my birthday thing. Like I get to actually spend it with Wesley. But yeah, otherwise I'm not really planning on doing a whole bunch. But what is the best birthday you've ever had? / how do you celebrate your birthday? Things like that. Tell me about how you do your birthday. But that's going to be it, I think, for the knitting stuff. So if that's all you were here for, thank you very much for hanging out with me. And I'll see you next week. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about my life. Like I said, I've been really, really busy, and I just feel like time has just been like flying by. Maybe it's my impending, getting a year older, but yeah, like I was thinking today that I couldn't believe that it was time to sit down and record a podcast again. Like just, what, didn't I just do this? And yeah, a week ago. So yeah, that's just sort of how my life has been lately. And like the thing is like I couldn't even really tell you what it is that I've been doing. I've just been really busy. And so that's just annoying. But yeah, I am really excited for this week at work because it's sort of like the best birthday present ever. But so this week we don't have any classes on Thursday and Friday. The university has no classes on Thursday and Friday as reading days. So it's like, it's really annoying because it's not fall break, right? The university is still open and everything, but there's no classes. So, okay, which means that the class I'm in still meets because it meets on Monday and Wednesday. But so any week that there's a single day that we don't have classes, right? So if there was like a Monday off or Friday off, or in this case, Thursday and Friday with no class, we don't run any of the labs, which is just because, if you have one that skips a week, but the others don't, it really screws things up, right? So anytime there's a day off, we just skip the whole week, which is great for me because it means that I don't have to do all those setups and stuff this week. So that's really nice. It also means that I don't have to teach it all this week because all of my teaching falls on Thursday and Friday, so even though the labs that I teach are sort of separate from the other labs, I just can't teach them because they're on Thursday and Friday, which again is really great because it means that I can sort of, if I don't want to do any grading this week, I don't have to. I probably will, like I want to try and get ahead, but still, it's like really nice. It's going to be a very low-key week, and so I'm very, very excited about that. And then of course on Friday, Friday I have the second of what will hopefully only be 3 dentist appointments. I've talked about this before, to get all my teeth fixed. Hopefully on Friday that'll be the second of 3, and I should be getting 6 fillings done on Friday, which is going to be a little bit rough, and that's why, like I say, hopefully. I'm not entirely sure they're going to be able to actually do everything that they want to do in the time that I'm scheduled for. So, which, I mean, if they only get half of what they're supposed to do done, like, that's fine. I'll just go back again in December, and it's not a big deal. But, and I'm trying to, maintain a positive outlook. You guys know I don't love the dentist. I'm trying to be positive about it and not freak out about it, because it's like, especially with fillings, for whatever reason, that doesn't bother me as much as like cleanings, because like fillings are not an unknown thing, right? I know what it's like to get fillings. There's nothing, I mean, of course bad things can happen, but it's like a filling is relatively straightforward. It's like you go in and you get the filling done and that's it, versus like a cleaning where it's like, oh my gosh, who knows what horrible news I'm gonna get today. So, but yeah, so I have that on Friday, and then like a fool, I also booked plane tickets to go up to New Hampshire on Friday, right? So I have my dentist appointment in the morning, and then I have a couple hours to try and get my wits back about me, and then I have to get on an airplane. So yeah, that'll be fun. It's just like this trip up there is going to be a whole lot of firsts, because what I'm trying this time is I'm going to fly into Boston, and then there's a bus that I can catch from Boston up to New Hampshire that takes about 3 hours. And then it will leave me off very close to Wesley's place, right? So he only has to drive maybe like 5 minutes to come get me, versus an hour to like the nearest decent airport. In terms of like money, it's not saving me a ton of money, because of course, I have to buy bus tickets and stuff, and I don't know why these plane tickets seemed so expensive. I don't know if I just like, the thing is, like, I got these plane tickets at the beginning of the month, so it's not like I waited until the last minute, but for whatever reason they just seem really expensive. It's kind of a wash in terms of like how much time is it saving as well, because of course I can fly nonstop from Richmond to Boston, which is really great, right? Because then I don't have to deal with the hassle of like switching planes and stuff. And for someone like me who doesn't particularly enjoy flying, nonstop flights are great, right? I only have to deal with one flight. But then of course, I have a 3-hour bus ride, but it's kind of a wash, because like, I think it will take an equal amount of time either way, right? Like there just is no quick way to get up there, right? It takes 10 hours to drive there. So like there just isn't a quick way to get there. I couldn't be so lucky as to have a direct flight into there. So in terms of timing, I think it's a wash. In terms of cost, it's kind of a wash, I think, flying into Boston. But the nice thing here is that, right, like I can get on this bus and then I can basically get almost all the way to Wesley's place, which is really nice, because with the other airport, the one that I flew out of when I went up there, or when we went up there to move him up there, I mentioned that airport's like an hour and 20 minutes from where he lives, and so then he had to drive me there and then drive back. So if I flew into that airport again, then he has to drive an hour and 20 minutes there to get me, and then we have to drive all that way back. And like, again, may or may not save time, but I don't like depending on someone else for that. So like, that's why I'm sort of doing this as like a test run this time, is to see how well this works, because then if I want to fly up there in the future, I don't have to be like worried about like, oh, but I can't fly in at this time because he won't be able to come get me. It's like, well, no, I can get on the bus by myself and then I can get there and it will be fine. So yeah, it'll be a very adventurous weekend next weekend, but otherwise, like I said, it's going to be a pretty low-key week, and I'm very excited for that. I think I sort of just need a break. I've just been very like stressed in general lately, and I don't really know why. But I can definitely tell that it's like not affecting my health in a good way. Like I have not been sleeping very well. I have just been very like all the time. And it's been causing some digestive issues, which I can tell are, it's like it's either directly from the stress or it's from the fact that I'm not sleeping well because of the stress. So it's like no matter what, there's stress causing this. So that's been kind of frustrating, but you know, we're getting through, and I'm hoping a pretty chill week, you know, a week where I don't have to worry about like being at work super early. Oh my gosh, I just realized that, right? So normally I have to make sure that I'm at work by 8 o'clock in the morning because that's when the first labs start, and the 8 o'clock in the morning is when it's most likely that a TA or an instructor is not going to show up on time just from oversleeping or not finding parking or whatever. And obviously I would like that to not be the case, but that just is the way that it is. And so I have to like make sure I'm there by 8 o'clock, just in case I need to get something started, you know, a lab started. But I just realized this week, if there's no labs, I don't have to be there by 8 o'clock. I mean, of course, I still would like to be, but it just means that I can be a little bit more relaxed about like getting out of the apartment in the morning. So that's pretty cool. Well, that just made my week a lot better. But yeah, otherwise, I'm trying to think of what else is interesting about my life. I've been trying to exercise more. I know I talked about this. Well, that was weird. It just all of a sudden decided to stop recording in the middle of me talking. Or like the program that I use for recording just like bloop, shut down. So that's strange. Luckily when it restarted, it still like it brought up as much of the recording as it had already gotten. So at least I didn't lose all of that. But yeah, that's weird. Anyway, I was talking about wanting to get back into exercising. So I've been trying to just, you know, exercise more, not sit at home being a lump on a log. So like this morning I went for a run, and, you know, just trying to work on my fitness. But it's funny, this actually reminded me of the computer program shutting down, reminded me of something funny that happened this week. So my work computer on, gosh, I'm trying to think of what day it was. Monday maybe? I think on Monday. It was like the end of the day, like I was just sort of finishing up and getting ready to go home, and then all of a sudden my work computer just bloop shut down, just like no warning, nothing, just like powered off. And I was like, and not like the proper shutting down, like, you know, the kind of shutdown that happens like when you lose power or something, just like boom, done. And I was like, oh no, right? And so I thought that maybe like the power had blipped or something, and that was what it was. But then it like restarted again. Like it, you know, it was off for a couple seconds and then it restarted again on its own. And I was like, oh, okay. Right. So then, you know, it boots up and it comes to the login screen where I have to log in, and I enter my, you know, my username and password and everything. And it starts trying to log me in and then boom, down again. And so we went through this like 3 times where like it would get to the login screen and it would start trying to log me in and then would shut down and, you know, keep doing this. So then I booted it up into safe mode. And because like while this is happening, I'm realizing like, oh no, I haven't backed any of my stuff up in a long time, like probably since the beginning of the semester, which, you know, wouldn't be truly tragic, but it would be pretty bad if I lost some of that stuff. Like it would definitely set back some progress, because like, you know, all of those lab manuals that I'm in charge of, the current forms only exist on my computer. I'm not very good about remembering to like update them and, you know, copy them over to the departmental servers. So I'm like, you know, praying like, please start up in, you know, safe mode. And it did. It started up fine in safe mode, and I was able to transfer everything over and back everything up. And then, of course, you know, I shot an email off to our tech support people to be like, hey, this is happening, help. But then, of course, it was at the end of the day. So I was like, well, whatever, I guess I'm going to go home now. And so it was the weirdest thing, because then I got back in the next morning and I turned it on thinking there's no way it's going to start up. And it totally did. It started up just fine and let me log in just fine. And so then, of course, I had to send another email to the tech people being like, okay, well, for whatever reason, this morning it seems to be fine. And so then it was like fine, and then all of a sudden it did it again on maybe like Wednesday or Thursday. It just, boom, shut down again. And I was like, what the heck? So, you know, I emailed the tech people again, and, you know, they were like, well, maybe it, you know, it's like an updating issue. So then, like, I tried to install updates on it, but it's just, so yeah. So they're like, well, we're going to get you a new computer because this is stupid. I'm like, thank you. But it was definitely one of those, like, sort of like, oh no moments that made me remember like, hey, I need to be backing this stuff up more frequently than I am. So I probably should set a reminder on my calendar to do that like every week or every other week or so. But yeah, but I guess that's going to be it. I've just been, I guess, so busy and so boring that I just don't really have anything to talk about. Sorry about that. But yeah, I will try and vlog next weekend when I am headed up to New Hampshire, so I can show you guys a little bit of what it's like. I think we're also planning, while we're up there, on going up to Burlington, Vermont, which is, I think it's about an hour north of where Wesley is. So it's a little bit of a drive, but it should be a nice drive because it'll be very pretty. I'm just hoping that not all the trees have lost their leaves by then. I'm hoping some of them still have their leaves, and I can see some fall colors. Because as we talked about last week, Richmond just doesn't know how to do fall. It was actually nice the past couple of days. It's gotten a little bit warmer today because the sun finally came out, because it was very gray the past couple of days. But we got a little taste of fall here. We'll see how long it lasts. But yeah, so we're going to go up to Burlington, so that should be kind of fun and exciting and vlog worthy. So stay tuned for that. I probably will not have a regular episode next week because I won't be getting back until later in the day on Sunday, and so I just don't think I'll have time to record a proper episode, on top of, you know, trying to do things to set myself up for success during the week, like, you know, getting groceries bought and stuff. But yeah, I guess we'll deal with that next week. We'll see how things go. But that's going to be it for me this week. Thank you very much for hanging out, and I will see you in one form or another next week. Bye.